Hello BookTube. Today is part 6 of my science fiction and fantasy library tour. Let us begin. So first up we have another book in the Malazan Book of the Fallen series. This is Reaper's Gate by obviously Steven Erikson. Following Erikson we have Vian Escalada's Halls of Law. Escalada is a pen name for Violet Milan, which I really ought to put them together. This is Behind the Walls of Terra by Philip Jose Farmer. I picked this up from the Friends of the Library Booksell Nook. Reaper's Gate I picked up from Golden's Book Exchange here in Waco, and I bought this Halls of Law from Barnes & Noble online. So, I forgot to mention where I get the book sometimes. This is The King's Buccaneer by Raymond E. Feist. Picked this up from the Friends of the Library Booksell Alcove at West Waco Library Genealogy Center. This is Jane Finn's Hidden Sun, which made 2 previous appearances in my October TBR and my December TBR. I have read it. First book I read in December and love it. Expect my review discussion to come up shortly after this video posts. Since it's already out, I might as well take the opportunity to talk about it. Fantastic book, got it from Amazon, but I'll talk a bit more about that in a few minutes. A Book of Tongues by Gemma Files. Picked this up from Amazon. Look in the Shadows, Stalking Darkness, and Trader's Moon. The 3 volumes in the Night Runner series by Lynn Flewelling. I picked 2 of these up from the first 2 volumes I picked up from Golden's Book Exchange, and then the 3rd volume I picked up from the Friends of the Library Booksell. I've never had the Night Runner series before. I did have her sequel series or prequel series, the books that started with the Bone Doll, I think. Forgetting what the name of the series is, but I quite enjoy Flewelling's work, and looking forward to finally getting around to reading the Night Runner series. This is Seven Princes by John R. Foles. I picked this up, I think, from Golden's Book Exchange. Foltz is also a blogger, and I quite enjoy some of his blog posts. Next are 2 books by Sarah Gailey. This is American Hippo, which is a collection that includes her River of Teeth, Taste of Marrow, which are the 2 novellas, and then there's Worth Her Weight in Gold and 9.5. So I've only read River of Teeth, and I quite liked it. I mean, it was a fun adventure. I had some issues with the world building that I might talk about when I get around to reading and maybe discussing this book at some point, but yeah. And next we have Magic for Liars, which I've talked about several times already. So just to rehash if you haven't seen those videos. it's a good idea, hampered by, I think, really a misunderstanding of detective fiction. So part of the plot is, or the main character, the narrator, is a private detective, and she's the worst private detective ever. It's just like that. The private detective fiction aspect of the novel is pretty bad, I think. And there's a magic school which kind of focuses a bit more on, even though it's technically, I think, a private school, it kind of reads more to me as a public school, or at least American version of a public school. And I think the idea there is interesting, although maybe not necessarily the characters that Gailey tends to focus on. So, anyway, I mean, I will give Magic Flowers another go, maybe sometime next year or the year after, to really see what I make of it, and then whether or not eventually, when I start running out of space, what I want to do with it. But I mean, and when I do reread books, sometimes I do change my mind. So anyway, next we have Neil Gaiman's Neverwhere. I think I picked this up from the Friends of the Library mini book sale. I really want his American Gods. I mean, I really, really want. Not the more recent adaptation cover. I mean, I would prefer an older edition. Next, I have four books by William Gibson. This is Burning Chrome, a collection that includes, obviously, Burning Chrome, which is a fantastic story that I quite enjoy. And let's see who else is in here. Johnny Mnemonic, The Gernsback Continuum, Fragments of a Hologram Rose, The Belonging Kind, Hinterlands, Restore, Winter Orbit, New Rose Hotel, The Winter Market, Dogfight, and obviously Burning Chrome. I want to say I picked this up from, this is a Waco McLennan County Library book, so I picked this up from the Friends of the Library Booksell alcove. And next I have 2 of the 3 volumes in the Sprawl trilogy, Neuromancer, which is fantastic, Count Zero, which I thought was a little bit better, and one of the seminal works of steampunk, The Difference Engine by William Gibson and Bruce Sterling. And rounding off this 6th video, we have 2 books by Max Gladstone. This is 3 Parts Dead. Quite liked it. I picked this up from, not entirely sure where I picked this up from. Anyway, quite enjoyed it. It's really interesting. I'm not entirely sure about sort of the hyper-capitalistic feel of the book, but it is really, really fascinating. And I do want to pick up the rest of the series. This is the 2nd book in the series, Two Serpents Rise. Again, quite enjoyed it. Next we have The Women's War by Jenna Glass. Came out earlier this year. I've been meaning to get to it, but I haven't, so I'll either try to get to it in January or March. But I'll talk about my 2020 reading plans after I do finish off the library tour. Next, we have another one of the Conan pastiche novels. This is Conan the Valiant by Roland Green. Picked this up from Golden Spoke Exchange. And Lev Grossman's The Magicians, which I read a few years, like when it first came out, or near enough to when it first came out. Quite liked it. I've seen some of the film or the television adaptation. Not terribly too fond of the television adaptation. And I thought the novel, I enjoyed the earlier parts of the novel more than I did the Narnia bits or the Fantasyland bits. But anyway, I do need to come back and reread The Magicians and maybe look into picking up the other 2 volumes in the series. So that was the 6th part of my science fiction and fantasy library tour. I will see you back here tomorrow for part 7. Thank you, BookTube.